If workers don't have a voice in Winnipeg, then where do they have a voice? Winnipeg's famous labor history is remembered in this monument to the Winnipeg General Strike of 1919. The strike violently culminated when a streetcar was famously pushed over and torched here on Main Street by demonstrators, and the Northwest Mounted Police fired into a crowd, killing 2. Labor activist J.S. Woodsworth spoke out against the crackdown in the Western Labor News, with a Bible quote from the book of Isaiah. "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees," an act that saw Woodsworth temporarily silenced. He was arrested for seditious libel. A 100 years later, these fellows haven't gathered at this spot to stoke their union pride. I've invited them to commiserate about a contemporary quandary they say is silencing the voices of workers anew: non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs. What's it like to meet someone else who's been through something similar to what you're going through?
It's good, it's empowering, it's nice to see other people stepping forward, because that's what we need, and that's what I want to encourage people. Step forward. Step forward, speak, even if you have an NDA against you.
These guys have both refused to sign NDAs. Is that a good tactic, do you think, to just refuse to sign it?
Absolutely. There's no justification whatsoever for ever signing an NDA unless you've got some secret recipe here that you work for the company you work for. Otherwise, it's a tool to silence people and to protect people who've done wrong.
I'm driving out to Dennis Smith's home to hear his story. He's a proud Métis man, and he's had all kinds of trouble with harassment at work. Racist comments being made to him. It was verified by a third-party investigation, but he hasn't got any help from management or from the union, really, that he's satisfied with anyway. So at this point, he is looking to go public.
Hey, Chris. Hey. Good to see you.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming. Come on inside. Come on inside.
All right.
Yeah. My name is Dennis Smith. I work for the City of Winnipeg. I've started with the City of Winnipeg in 2007. I'm a multi-trades person. I'm a plumber, gas fitter, sheet metal, refrigeration and air conditioning mechanic by trade, commercial and all.
Dougal Lamont has joined us. He's been supporting Dennis through his troubles in the workplace.
Yeah, I'm Dougal Lamont. I'm a recovering politician, I say it. I used to be the leader of the Manitoba Liberal Party and MLA for St. Boniface for leader for 6 years and MLA for 5.
Dennis's troubles are possibly related to a 2019 news story involving the department he works for.
Dennis just called me up, and I knew what he was talking about because there had been an investigation. Private investigators had been hired, and they found out that all these people weren't doing their jobs. They were not showing up to work. They were going shopping. They were doing private errands. It was really serious.
And so as a hard worker who diligently follows rules, Dennis Smith found himself not fitting in a department where doing the work didn't seem to necessarily be a priority.
And I was by the photocopier one day, and a guy says, if I find out who's the rat, I'm gonna frickin' kill him. And I said, buddy, are you accusing me of something? I'm the only one standing here.
The alleged harassment didn't stop there.
When I'm talking on the phone, the people can't hear me, and I'm pretty much yelling, and then I'm getting accused of screaming by fellow staff.
So they
put tape over my phone, yeah. And then what they were doing is they were spraying cologne on my chair, and then we have a cologne-free environment. So I was getting harassed about that. Also, a fellow co-worker says, snitches get stitches. I says, what the heck are you talking about? Even took my, we got these new VoIP phones that called like voice over internet protocol phones, right? And what was happening was everybody else's phone would ring. Mine wasn't ringing. And then finally, the boss comes out and he says, hey, you're something wrong with your phone. People are trying to get a hold of you. One of the fellow inspectors went and forwarded my phone to an engineering firm. So I put in a complaint about it. I said, you know how many steps it takes to do something like that? Took it to the boss. I took it to everybody. Nobody would do anything about it. Not the union, nobody.
It's actually really hard for people to understand just how cruel and shattering it is to treat people this way. And the fact that he's Indigenous is absolutely part of it.
Smith says he was later asked to sign an NDA. He refused. More on that in a moment.
This particular last employment with the healthcare in Manitoba, I experienced, I would say, severe racism. Sort of near, I would say the last 5 years were quite severe. Often the supervisor, would go around and say things like, to me, are you on the warpath, Marcel?
Like Dennis Smith, Marcel Williamson didn't sign the NDA he was asked to sign. Williamson has told his story to a committee of Manitoba MLAs looking at making legislative changes that would restrict the use of NDAs. I visited Marcel to find out more about what he experienced.
This one particular person, she has to get around me as she leaves for the day. That day seemed like a normal day. She was leaving for her work. I was on my computer, and all of a sudden, I got hit. I don't know what hit me. I don't know if it was her that hit me or if she hit me with something, but I flew off my chair, and she walked by and she said sorry, and I just said, oh, okay.
So you're on the floor.
I'm on the floor. I just sat there stunned.
Another time, Marcel says a supervisor pulled a chair up close to him in a tense closed-door meeting and kicked him below the knee, a supposed accident. And on a different occasion, Marcel says the same supervisor stood very close to him in another closed-door meeting.
And so I was, at the time I was going through a lot of dental work for my teeth, and so I informed him. I let him know, hey, I got a dental appointment. And I think the way he took it was that I was telling him what to do. And so he brought me into his office as I was going to my appointment. He says, oh, hey, Marcel, can I have a word with you? Oh, sure. So we get in the office, and that's when he, in a closed door meeting, decided to, I guess, try to get another reaction from me. It was a very intimidating stance he took against me. He was literally close to my face, nose to nose, and basically telling me, you don't tell us what the F to do.
Marcel put his allegations into a report for managers at Shared Health and filed a police report about the alleged shin kick and allegedly getting knocked out of his chair. An internal investigation determined one of the warpath comments was real, but the allegations of violence, which were denied by the alleged perpetrators, on the balance of probabilities, did not occur. Marcel's complaints about this sort of treatment eventually led to his termination in 2021, but not before management asked him to sign a non-disclosure agreement and take tens of thousands of dollars. To get a better grip on the world of NDAs in the workplace, we went to see Julie McFarlane, retired from the law faculty at the University of Windsor, but busy co-running an international anti-NDA campaign called Can't Buy My Silence.
Hi there.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
All right, very good.
This is Teddy.
Hi, Teddy. Nice to meet you too. McFarlane knows NDAs inside and out.
So a non-disclosure agreement restricts you from speaking to anyone who is not specifically designated by the agreement. And usually the agreement is limited to designating a tax advisor, a financial advisor, or a legal advisor. So no speaking to family or friends, no speaking to colleagues or former colleagues, no speaking to a therapist or a psychologist or a spiritual advisor of any kind. So we are saying that those agreements are constraining people from healing.
There's a myth, McFarland says, that non-disclosure agreements bring closure.
The reality is that NDAs don't bring people closure. We hear constantly that this means they have an albatross around their necks for the rest of their lives because the NDA is forever, and they must live in constant trepidation of breaking the agreement and possibly therefore forfeiting their compensation.
McFarland also keeps a running count of the types of people who tend to be most negatively impacted.
And those demographics show us that there is a disproportionate impact on women, and that is probably explained by their use in sexual harassment and pregnancy discrimination cases. We also see a disproportionate impact on Black and Brown people and Indigenous people. They are at higher levels of signing than white colleagues, and that seems to reflect their disproportionate, let me call it, value in the workplace, because what they are often being NDA'd over are their own complaints about being held to a different standard and not treated equally with their white colleague.
Both Williamson and Smith have refused to sign NDAs about the workplace abuse they say they suffered, and both have subsequently not been compensated. So where does the fight against NDAs go from here? It's been more than 5 years now since Dennis Smith brought forward his allegations of discrimination against the city of Winnipeg. He still works for the city and has been keeping meticulous notes and documentation of his alleged mistreatment.
Here's some more documents that I got, and this is nothing. There's a heck of a lot more than this. But what I did was I'm trying my best to keep everything separate, and I'm looking at it in a way, okay, a lawyer would need this. A reporter would need this. An ex-politician would need this. You know, an Indigenous organization would need this. I'm breaking it all down.
Smith's misery at work reached new depths at a meeting called to try to deal with the ongoing problems he was encountering.
I said, you know what we really need here, so-and-so, is we really need an Indigenous mediator, investigator. Oh, I'm not hiring no Indian. I went, what? And I turned around the room and I look. I said, did anybody hear that? One person in the room only said, I heard that. And I couldn't believe that my union rep didn't speak out.
Things got so bad with the unpleasant treatment at work that Smith went on a workers' compensation board endorsed medical leave for just over a year with a psychological injury. A third-party investigation into his situation confirmed he was being mistreated. The summary of the Legacy Bose report, dated August 9, 2019, says, the investigator finds the environment in the Property Planning and Development Department had been pervasive with racial slurs during the complainant's tenure. The investigator finds 4 allegations substantiated out of a total of 11 allegations investigated. And he was offered money with a non-disclosure agreement they wanted him to sign.
He's not the one who's done anything wrong. So he's being asked to keep a secret that other people he have done wrong. He's still being punished, in my view. So they expected him to be silent, and they offered him that money only if he was silent. And part of the deal was that he loses his job. So what the hell kind of deal is that?
In fact, even though Smith rejected the offer, he discovered they deposited the $20,000 into his account anyway, without his permission. Here's the money coming into Dennis's account, and here's the bank sending it back on his behalf.
So I need people that know their stuff, and I need to get a movement going, and I got to find a way to get people to unite, just like a union's supposed to do. Not do this. Let's unite. And let's all work together and support one another, and let's make the city of Winnipeg a better place.
It's something that Marcel Williamson can relate to. He was initially offered $28,000 with his termination.
So when they gave me that offer, I countered with my own offer of $96,000, with my argument of why, indicating this is what I went through. They came back with $60,000 and denied all of what I said. They says shared health denies everything you say, basically.
Unable to get the compensation he feels he's owed, and not liking the NDA, Marcel wouldn't sign the deal. We asked Shared Health for an interview, and they emailed us a statement, which reads in part, "While we will not discuss individual employment matters, we can confirm that, as part of the standard process for resolving employment terminations, a non-disclosure agreement is included in the final settlement terms. However, it would be inaccurate to suggest that financial settlements are provided solely in exchange for signing an NDA."
I think that Manitoba, with the very large Indigenous community and the clear evidence that we have that this is having a disproportionate impact on Indigenous people, give them even more reason to want to be in the forefront of this.
For Julie McFarlane, the battle against non-disclosure agreements is largely a legislative one. She advocated for the Prince Edward Island Non-Disclosure Agreements Act that became law in 2022. It's the first of its kind in Canada and bans the use of non-disclosure agreements in silencing victims of harassment or sexual misconduct. McFarlane is also pushing for similar legislation in Nova Scotia and Manitoba. What should NDA legislation look like?
So it's not a complete ban on NDAs for sexual misconduct, discrimination, and harassment. It's saying a victim, if they really genuinely want this, because we don't want to take away any choices from them, could choose it, but they should be given advice on the alternatives, because so many people don't realize they can simply have a one-sided confidentiality agreement. And they also have to have been given legal advice. They have to have had some time to consider it, because sometimes people are given a really short period, have to decide now. They also have what is often called a cooling off period, so if they reconsider it in the next couple of weeks, they can still change their minds.
McFarlane points out that there is movement on NDA legislation. The Uniform Law Conference of Canada is on it. They're a group of lawyers and legal organizations who make it their business to write draft laws, and they have formed a committee to draft a template for NDA legislation.
And that is currently in process at the moment, and that process should be completed this summer.
Beyond putting a legislative safety net around NDAs, McFarlane suggests that a little corporate responsibility could help too.
The National Union of Public and General Employees, who represent public employees across Canada, they have passed a resolution that they will no longer use NDAs or cooperate in any settlement agreements that have NDAs in them.
And Dennis Smith's CUPE?
CUPE has certainly recognized that this is an issue, but they haven't really engaged on making any change at this point.
APTN Investigates reached out to the Canadian Union of Public Employees, but there was no response. The City of Winnipeg responded to our request for an interview with a statement. It says, "All City of Winnipeg employees are entitled to be treated fairly and with dignity, free from harassment or discrimination in the workplace. Behavior contrary to the city's respectful workplace standard is not tolerated." Hearing that Julie McFarlane had sent a packet of materials to Manitoba's Justice Minister, Matt Wiebe, we decided to visit him.
Well, we're looking forward to meeting further with Professor McFarlane, and very interested in the work that she's done in sort of researching this and bringing together some of these ideas for us to continue to listen to and look at. Ultimately, our government has already taken some steps when it comes to protecting survivors, protecting those who've been harassed in the workplace. Specifically, I'm talking about some of the legislation that we brought forward around judicial training and some of the other work that we're doing in the courts. But we think that there's a real opportunity to build on that legislation, to protect folks.
Former Manitoba Liberal leader Dougald Lamont lost his seat in the last election, the one that saw Wabkanu's NDP crush the outgoing PCs, and from his perch as a recovering politician, he wishes the wheels of change would turn a little faster.
I hope that somebody will have the nerve and the strength of character to actually stand up and do something about this abuse, whether it's in both of the city of Winnipeg and within the labor movement. Like, there needs to be a reckoning.
But it's nice.
Marcel Williamson has come a long way from where he was when his ordeal happened.
I got into my spirituality, I got into exercising, I got into a lot of self-healing exercises to get past it. It took me probably about a good, I think, 6 months before I started feeling like normal again. And now life is much better. I'm doing IT consulting now. I'm helping a First Nation in the north bring telecom services where they don't have any cell service there.
He's looking to the new provincial government to revisit NDA legislation originally proposed by Dougald Lamont before the election was called.
And hopefully with this government, this new NDP government under WAB, Mr. Canoe there, we can maybe rehash that and see what the options are.
But Dennis is the one with the most to lose. He still has his job with the city, and he wants to keep it. And he wants the problems he's faced to be corrected. To that end, he's acquired a lawyer. But whatever comes out of that can't repair the effect all of this has had on him and his family.
Basically, everything that I've been put through has changed, I could say, changed my DNA. I used to be the happiest, most go-lucky guy that you would ever meet. Not anymore. I felt alone, scared. You name it, all the emotions are there. But it lit a fire inside me. Somebody has to stand up and do something.